So one of the things I admire about you and the work that you do is that you are someone who, you are your authentic self, right? Whether it's streaming in streams that end up on YouTube or Twitter, and you're your authentic self in a field where it feels like we always have to be a more polished version of ourselves.
Yeah. True. I am. It's so I was at this like content creator house for like a weekend.
Okay.
And it was like me and a bunch of YouTubers, right? And like they thought like they're data and data science content creator people. And they thought like, oh yeah, live streaming is like the fun random thing that they do, and like that's my like number one content, right? Like I turn the camera on, I'm alive for like 4 to 6 hours a night, and they saw me do it, and they were petrified. They were like, did you just like yell at your community for like 4 hours straight? I'm like, yeah, but they yell back at me. Like I don't think that's the response that they were thinking they were going to get, like from me or from my community. But they realized like, oh, like, yeah, he does it this way, this like very like in real time, like degenerate kind of content. But like everyone else in the room, they vary between like didn't really want to, like they didn't really get it. They're like, how is this content? And then other people were, yeah, it's like how do you make this into a video? Like how do you make this into something other people want to watch? And for me, it's like, no, they're watching already. They're in the room, like they come for this.
Yeah.
And so yeah, like the idea that most of the space is like relatively educational focus or edutainment focus. Mm-hmm. Like I never brand myself as anything under the brand of educational at all, because I don't think it is. Like I think the way that I would, if I was good at, I say this on my stream, if I was good at video games, I would be playing video games, but I'm horrible at video games. So the only thing I'm good at is coding. And so that's why I code live, because like, that's my, like, I feel like I'm good at it. And so this is what it'd be like. Just imagine a video game and it's all the same, you know, it should be no different, but here I am. So.
Yeah. And I feel like, so I've done a little bit of live streaming. I think that my personal opinion is that live streaming is rewarding in ways that other types of content creation aren't. Because you are interacting with people assuming people show up, and you're at a point where people show up consistently to your streams. You've got people to react to, people to talk to. There is a little bit of a lag, but for the most part, I think it's really enjoyable. But if you make a mistake, you're making it in front of hundreds of people.
Yeah, and like you're toast, because like there is no walking it back. There's no editing session, right?
Yeah. If you let something slip. I got to a point where I was working at our studio and I was having a hard time streaming because they had started really working in earnest on Shiny for Python and doing Shiny in the browser with Wasm, and I didn't trust myself not to share that. Right? Like to just say it, like not even intentionally, to just be like, oh yeah, our Shiny for Python. And then boom, I've now violated my NDA on air.
Yeah. Yeah. And to like literal RStudio fanatics. Like it's not even like, hey, here's like a small random community of like Final Fantasy people. No. The most hardcore art, like people who want to watch the RStudio person do more RStudio.
Yeah, it does get tough. And so like, what made you choose streaming, right? Because if you think about data science content, I would say blogs. Number one, it's a blog, whether it's Medium, whatever, your own blog. And then it's maybe YouTube videos, but you chose Twitch, and I don't think the data science community is as active on Twitch as it used to be.
No, I mean, like, I talked about this on stream too, uh, like really sliced sort of inspired data science on Twitch. And just like anything, everyone started a blog before. I'm an old guy, so like I was on message boards, and like I remember starting my own like message board for like a band I was into, and like it died within a month. It's the same. It's social media hasn't changed, especially when it's something that you have to like propel yourself. Streaming is similar. I'd say a lot of people end up starting because they think it's like something they want to try, and then it truly just becomes a try. It's just, I did it for a month, I did it for X amount of time, and they don't do it anymore because it's XYZ. Not enough viewers, not enough engagement, not like too much effort, all these other things, right? Like a big barrier for a lot of people is like, I don't want to go live. I don't want to put more makeup on when I get home, or I don't want to look good when I get home and then go live, right? Like that was kind of a big issue. But for me, I guess specifically, it starts way back when I started streaming my dissertation. So this is back in 2016. This is when like Twitch was like,
those are like early like it was Justin TV, not much earlier than that.
Like a year or two before that, it was Justin TV. Yeah. So, and like I was using Justin TV for like not streaming purposes at all. So, so when it turned to Twitch and it was getting more traction, and I was like at the beginning of writing up my dissertation. Like it's all ready to go. The data's there. The analysis is all approved. The results are in. I just got to write it all up and get the hell out of Utah. The force for me, because, I like writing, but I don't like being forced to write. And a dissertation feels like you're being forced to write, which you are
100%. Like you are held hostage until you are done writing.
Mm-hmm. And so I was like, if I don't want to stay here an extra year or an extra 2 years or an extra N years, like I need to finish this within the year, right?
Yeah.
That's writing, that's editing, that's going through all the revisions, that's doing every single thing. So I remember Chris Albin doing like this when he was writing his dissertation, his like log that he had in Excel or something. And it was like, how many like lines or sentences or words did I write in my dissertation today? And it was like him tracking it. And he would like talk about it on Partially Derivative, RIP, Partially Derivative. He would talk about it, and then it'd be on Twitter on his account and stuff. And I always have that in my mind because like I wasn't too far after that point where he had his dissertation defense. I'm now getting to mine. I wanted to keep honest in the public eye as well. So I decided to stream. I was going to stream me writing my dissertation every day. Like I wanted to like every day I'm going to stream. And then like every day became once a week pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So
yeah, because streaming is punishing, right? Like it is, you have to be on.
Yes. And like the content can't just be you typing, saying nothing, right?
There's like, this is, I don't think people realize this, like streaming is entertainment, right? Whatever you're doing on stream is secondary to entertaining just
whoever.
The jabronis in chat, right? Like
that's right.
Like you got to keep them happy or they're not coming back.
You do, absolutely. And this is like back when Twitch, like when I started streaming on Twitch, they had just created a section called creative. So back in the day, Twitch used to ban people if you weren't playing a video game.
Yep.
And so in order to, and then there's more people who were creating non-video game content, like they were going outside and like walking around, like whatever.
And there were like, I remember like someone was putting together furniture, like
Yeah.
they were, or like cooking, and people were kind of experimenting with things. Yeah.
Yeah. So around 2016, they created a section called Creative, which was like basically like if you aren't playing video games, you go into this like creative section. So I was in there with like people who are doing like metalworking, people who are doing, or like just like the bird watchers. I don't know, random stuff. And for me, I was like, okay, I could do this. This is easy. But the scariest part about it was like, okay, who's gonna watch? Like, as the academic, it's like, well, I'm writing my dissertation. I don't want to get scooped. Within the first like week, it's like, okay, I streamed to 3 people, so who's gonna scoop me, right?
Yeah.
3 people turns into 5, and then I think I didn't max out beyond like 10 for like my dissertation era of streaming.
That's incredible. 10 people are tuning in as you write your dissertation.
Yeah. And a lot of it was like them asking, what am I writing about? And I'm like, this is my dissertation on this topic. And then I start talking about it. I'm like, did I word that right? And then I go back and I check. It was a good check, but it was pretty dense. There weren't many returning viewers, that's for sure. But yeah, that was an era of Twitch where like 10 viewers were pretty respectable.
Yeah.
Like now that equivalent would probably be like 50-ish to 100-ish. But yeah, 10 back then was like, wow, you could hold 10 people. That's crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. So what is your PhD in?
I got my PhD in psychology. My dissertation was on the neuroscience of strategy formation. So I am a cognitive neuroscientist by trade.
And you are currently...
I'm currently the director of analytics for the Cincinnati Reds.
That's okay. So do you need a PhD in cognitive neuroscience to do baseball data science?
No. And like, if you do, please let me know first. If you have one of those, call me first. Don't call anyone else. But to get a job in baseball, it's much like getting a job as a data scientist anywhere at this point. There are so many routes in. So before, there used to be like very limited routes into, let's just say data science, right? There were pretty limited routes into data science because you need to do like one of 20 different things. And the people who knew one of 20 different things were people who typically were either very senior in their current tech roles, or if you were coming out of school, you probably did some sort of PhD in something, computer science or research related. So now it's like they have data science programs, they have statistics programs that are being like geared towards early career data scientists now. Everyone is like switching over their statistics programs to do labs in R or labs in Python or labs in whatever language. So coding is a part of it now. Like there's even a database requirements. Like you got to take a database course in order to graduate from a statistics program, right? They just know like statisticians need to learn more of a tech stack than they need to know like here is like Euler's formula for something. Or this is Bayes' rule. Please like write it upside down,
Have you ever been asked to write Bayes' rule upside down?
Yeah, that was the question at the Reds. That's no, I was never asked. I was never asked to do that. I was never asked to do that in my dissertation. Although I did get a Bayes question in my dissertation. People asked like, what is a Bayes factor? Which is a fair question. What is it's like the Bayes people want to replace p-values. And so
well, I talked to Chelsea the other day.
Oh, I'm sure she had an opinion. Yeah, I saw she was on. I saw it. So
there's multiple sections about p-values. So.
Yes, very, very. It's yes, we all love Chelsea.
We
Chelsea.
do love Chelsea very much. Yeah, I definitely, when I got on the call, there was a part of me that was like, what happens if I just say, so Chelsea, p-values, and like just record for an hour? Like that is probably the full interview right there. But yeah.
Python starts with P, Chelsea.
It starts with P.
Yeah. What are your thoughts?
But she could run with it. I feel, for sure. So is baseball your favorite sport? Like, have you always wanted to work in baseball?
No.
Also, if that's going to get you fired, let me know.
No, it's fine. It's fine. There's many people at this organization where their first sport that they fell in love with is definitely not baseball.
Okay.
And there's definitely a lot of people in just baseball in general where they're probably coming into baseball because the technology in baseball is a lot more advanced than other sports.
Okay.
Which means like their skill set's ripe in baseball, but probably doesn't exist in, say, soccer, right?
Okay.
Like there's just a lot more like tangent. Say you're doing like biomechanist related work. Like you want to know like not just the kinesiology of a body, but like emphasis on like torque and force and calories required to maintain torque and force in certain joints. Like that's something in the biomech program that at some like higher level you learn about. But in order to apply that, say in a sports setting, there's not a lot of like tracking tools available in sports that allow you to see that like in game or in real time or whatever, except for a sport like baseball, where like we have markerless biomechanics now. You don't need to like wear like a weird suit with like foam balls on it. You just like play baseball, and the computer vision and the technology is like so good now that you can isolate a player's. And the sport itself is so large, right? It's like not large, like but like players play literally like independent of each. It's not like football where like the offensive linemen are like next to each other, right? So you can get a lot of like independent, results from people. And then when you're doing like pitching, there's very specific things you can target in like a pitching movement, or in batting, there's very specific things you can train a model on in terms of like computer vision batting tools. So biomechanics in general, like a lot of people end up coming into baseball right now because the tech is there for them to be their best self.
Yeah, I didn't even know about any of that. I know that, even growing up, baseball statistics always felt very accessible, right? Like I felt like I grew up playing sports. I did not grow up watching a lot of sports, but like I feel like baseball stats were around a lot more, like baseball cards alone. I don't think we had football cards or hockey cards. Like I don't think those are a thing. And so that'd be amazing. First of all, just bring back the cards.
Just totally like ignoring all of like the hockey and soccer and football card industries. Most likely exist.
Seriously, it was always baseball cards growing up, and now I feel, all right, I guess you can get a football card. Nobody ever's like, oh, you want to trade football cards?
No, I honestly never found a like football card collector. That is true. They exist. They do exist. For a summer, I helped friends, my friend has his dad's family business. It's stamp collecting and stamp auctioning. Okay. So he doesn't collect. He's just an auctioneer. So he has all these lots, and then he just sells these lots. Like he goes to like, it's kind of like, storage wars.
Yes.
Where like, people go and they bid on like storage lots. Like he'd go similarly to like storage lots that have like stamps or some sort of collectible in it. Yeah. And then he tends to like grab those lots and then resell them, right? So I worked at a stamp auction one summer, and collectible industry, it's really for anything. Like there's some pretty whack stuff in the football, in the like sports memorabilia Like, not that it's bad. It's just like, I would have never thought that you would be able to like find someone who wanted that. Like seats
Yeah.
from like a stadium that got torn down or something.
Where are you going to put those, right?
Think of one room in your house where you're like, that seat from an old stadium will really go well next to whatever the heck, you know?
I have 3 rooms in my apartment. There's nowhere that seat is going to fit. Like, it just
Like,
isn't going to look good.
does it, like, do you put it on a wall? Like, what do you do? Like,
I don't know. Do you think people, like, I kind of love people who collect things. I always think it's really interesting. Do people collect like multiple seats? Like, would someone get like rows and rows of seats from a stadium?
this is, you know, this is a great question. I think like I honestly have no idea. Like, I remember when I grew up in the Bay Area, so Handle State Park was getting torn down. They auctioned off like pairs of seats, and the first offering were to like season ticket holders, right? Like, hey, you could buy your seats that you sat in, and no one bought them except for like crazy collectible people. And I'm like, also like the markup on these seats, it's like you're trying to sell something that you were going to like literally like demolish
Yeah.
at like hundreds of dollars. Like the seat is like
It's a
from
seat.
from the 60s that like millions of people have sat in. You know?
So do you have any collections, or did you have any collections as a kid? Were you a
Oh yeah.
collector?
I my family was not very big into material things at all. So I actually, as a kid, never collected many things. But in my older era now, I do collect shoes. So I have
like sneakers? Are you a sneakerhead? Okay.
Yeah, I have quite the sneaker collection at this point. If I was at my house, I would show you a bunch, but the only ones I have are these ones that I'm wearing right now. You know, these are the B Trues. They're so good.
Amazing.
Yeah, I collect a lot of sneakers, and then in college I used to collect vinyl toys. They're just like, you know, if you go to like a hip hop or urban kind of store and you see like toys in a case or something.
Yeah.
They're usually like toys they're collectible toys, but you don't like actually like play with them or anything. It's like weird collector people like myself, apparently, who buy a toy because like an artist collaborated with like a particular manufacturer or something. So you could like, if you Google some of these things, and for those who are like, oh yeah, I know what that is. There's things like,
I will be Googling.
yeah, like brick. Like, I didn't collect brick bears, but brick bears are pretty popular. Okay. Dunnies are pretty popular. I used to collect some dunnies, but over the years, like I've kind of like sold or traded away a lot of my vinyl toy collection. Really, the emphasis for me doing this was actually you would buy these like completely white toys. Okay. And then I used to like do street art, and we like when you met up with someone else doing street art, you would trade toys. So there's like sometimes like you would get people like at a party to sign like your black book, and then it's like, they tag your black book, and it's like, cool, like I know these people. Another way is like if you and another friend like, hey, like I'm doing this toy. If you do a toy, like let's trade toys. Then you like style your particular toy, and then you can trade. And then it's like, here's a collection of like artists that I know that I've met, and we've traded like unique art. So that's how I kind of got into it.
Okay. So PhD in cognitive neuroscience.
Yeah.
Former street artist and musician.
Yeah.
Also super into sports, data science. Like what got you interested in data science?
I think it's like sort of a more magnetizing the other way. It's like what made me want to leave academia.
Ooh, okay.
Right. So
Yeah.
like by the time I was like streaming my dissertation or whatever, I was already at the point where the type of research I want to do, it's difficult to fund. The 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 clinical impact of the research I was doing wasn't very high. Um, every time I would try to like write a grant with like a clinical aspect, it was so shallow.
Mm.
Um, and I think that was coming through in the grant. Or grants rather. So I was rejected from all these different grants that I was writing. By the way, just in general, grad school in neuroscience, like the emphasis on grant writing and paper writing is like becoming so much higher than the actual research itself at this point. It's its own, like, I don't know. I think that's just so backwards, just from like a what science really is standpoint. Like, really, the students still, like, you should be training your students to become the grant writers and whatever, but to force them to grant write, to force them to do all these things. Like, I'm not saying I was forced, but everyone around me, when they were like expected to do that stuff, it was like, well, I have to do that too, because I'm essentially competing with them for tenure track jobs or postdoc fellowships or whatever. When I realized, like, well, I don't really want to compete. Like, I already could do the work. I don't want to like prove myself more in the form of like written words saying like, here's what I'm going to do. If you trust in my skills, it's like, well, I trust in my skills. And you know who else is going to trust in my skills? Someone who hires me as the employee to do these things I do, which are like coding, statistics, research methods, writing up results, all of those things. Those are all employable skills. And I don't need to write a grant every time I want to do a new thing, right? Yeah. And so I realized like maybe academia is not for me because my emphasis is really more research based, and I would like to like get away from like the bureaucracy of academia, or really like, in my opinion, like the facade of science. Like I want to do actual science.
Yeah. So I don't know if we've talked about this. I worked on my PhD in immunology and infectious diseases, but it was diseases of the nervous system. And so I was studying prion diseases. And similarly, like prion diseases are a very small field. And I started looking at careers, and it wasn't a rosy future. I did not leave with the idea of going into data science, but everything you're saying really tracks for me in that everything that I learned in my PhD program set me up for success as a data scientist.
Yeah, I absolutely relate to that. And a lot of people will relate to that. Like a lot of the time people come into the stream and they're lost, right? They're like at that point of, I'm a student, I'm training to do this. I don't want to do that. And, it's like, what options are there for me? Is data science an option? And if you like sort of Venn diagram, like if you have research methods, if you know statistics, if you know how to program, like that's going to get you 90% of the way there, right? So
and depending on how organized you are, you've also got project management skills.
That's right.
Organizing your work and organizing the work of other people is one of those things that I think has differentiated me, at least in my data science career, and just let me move around a lot more. That I would recommend to anyone. So, yeah. So you are into sports. I'm here asking for advice as a chat person would, but instead of data science, sell me on sports, Nick. So here's the thing, right? I grew up playing sports. I'm familiar with sports. It is so overwhelming to get into sports as a fan. Where do I start?
Well, it depends on how you want to engage with the sport. And let's just start from the top. The number one thing you typically want to engage, like if you're going to spectate a sport, would be just for the fun of it, right? And so, like, do these things sound like a good time to you? Like hanging out with friends, beer and or hot dogs?
Absolutely not. No.
Like nachos inside of potentially weird vessels, like a
walking taco.
Maybe a walking taco. Yeah. Gigantic churros. I'm talking a lot about food at this point. Maybe
friends and food. Like keep going. I'm listening.
Yeah. Potentially give away things like you might have like a relatively crazy looking bobblehead available.
Is that your mascot?
This is Mr. Red or Mr. Redlegs. This is actually vintage Mr. Redlegs. Apparently, here's modern Mr. Redlegs. Who? Yeah, he's a baseball with like extremely like I'm looking at you eyes.
This feels like Mr. Met, but I've never heard of Mr. Red.
Yeah, so
Mr. Redlegs. Sorry.
Mr. Redlegs. Yeah, so Mr. Redlegs predates Mr. Met.
Okay.
The Cincinnati Reds were the first baseball team, first professional baseball team. And so opening day actually happens in Cincinnati. So there's a parade that happens on opening day. We have the first game of the year. Along with that, there are two variations of Mr. Red and Mr. Redlegs. Mr. Redlegs with the mustache, he's like the mascot that we all grew up to love. Every baseball mascot, you probably see a lot of mascots that look like this. Mr. Red, who is also a mascot, was created during the Cold War era, and was our way to get away from the name the Cincinnati Reds, which had Russian connotations. So we identified as the Cincinnati Redlegs, which also ends up begatting the Cincinnati's Big Red Machine days and the World Series 70s team. So a lot of like the people think of like the greatest Reds era. A lot of them consider like that 70s team a part of that best era. So you see a lot of like that, like vintage, weird looking Reds stuff from that era. But a lot of it is like Redlegs because we were not communists apparently. So also back then the Redlegs uniforms were like blue. They were so like we're not going to be associated with Reds that they actually started wearing like blue uniforms. Yeah,
this is amazing. I love this.
Yeah, but there's another part of it. If you're interested in the history of a weird sport, you're interested in just like the fan. It's like I always think about baseball, like going to like literally any event, a concert, the circus, the zoo, an aquarium, whatever it is. Like it's something so unique and different. The only difference is like they're very beer forward. And generally the food is also pretty eccentric. So at the very most lowest denominator, even if you don't understand what's going on the field, you have some like gigantic, like they're like the Arizona Diamondbacks used to sell this thing called the churro dog, which was 2 donuts with a churro in between, whipped cream and like ice cream, and then you would eat it like a hot dog. Which sounds just like a monstrosity of calories and sugar, but in the setting of baseball, it sounds amazing.
I will say, I do enjoy baseball games. I was in Dallas, Texas. I mean, I lived in Dallas, Texas for about 8 years, and I don't know how good the Rangers are, but this was a particularly bad time in their history in that we got $7 first baseline tickets.
Hell yeah.
And it was, I don't remember the game. I remember eating so much food and like not even being able to eat all the food that I wanted to eat, watching the game. And then like the 7th inning stretch, there was singing, there was clapping, there were fireworks. It was like the state fair, but you got to sit down and watch something.
Yeah. No. But also, I think you're correct in that the Rangers, if they're offering you $7 tickets for first base line,
you got to go.
Probably, one, you got to go. But your intuition is probably correct that they probably weren't the best team at the time.
I mean, it was still like $60 for parking, you know.
That's Arlington. That's how Arlington gets you.
Normal stuff. Yeah, it was brutal, but also so much fun. Yeah. So are you saying like baseball would be a good sport to get into? And then if it's a good sport to get into, how do you pick your team?
Yeah. I mean, like, I'm never going to force baseball onto anyone. Like, I got into baseball really late. I didn't like grow up watching baseball. I wasn't a fan of baseball until I was in college. And the way I found it was through statistics.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, it's just so rich in statistics, and it's had such a history there. Like that was attractive to me, and that's kind of how I found my way to baseball. But for those who are interested in baseball, whether it's like statistics or for random food or for the actual sport, the best way to get into baseball, I think, is going to games personally.
Yeah.
The in-game experience is just so unique, and it's relatively affordable, especially if you're like the team that you're attending, the team that you're seeing isn't a major league baseball team, right? Like there's so much minor league and independent league baseball. You know, for a long time, like when I was growing up in Sonoma County, we had like the Sonoma County Crushers, and they were like this, like, I don't even know if they were affiliated with any particular team. Pretty sure they're like an independent baseball team. And like going to a game was like $10, and it had all the fanfare we were just talking about. You could sit like wherever you wanted. And parking wasn't even bad at all. Like you just park at the Costco and you walk across the street. You probably don't do that. Don't do that. They probably tell you for that at this point. But yeah, I definitely didn't do that. Not me.
No, you are law-abiding.
Yeah, not me. But I mean, it is like the accessibility to baseball is pretty large. Like there aren't too many sports that are like baseball where you can have like both like gigantic teams playing next to like very tiny teams, and you have the luxury of going to both. And like in the middle of nowhere, you're going to have minor league teams, and it's really good for the community to go support that team and like to go see that team play. And typically there are also like teams that are feeding like the next generation of players into the major leagues as well. But a lot of the time, I don't want to say it's the only show in town for some cities, but it's also like maybe the biggest show in town. It's a minor league team is funded by a major league team, right? So there's just a lot of investment into a lot of these minor league teams that most people probably don't know about. And so the production you get at those games, it tends to be like pretty good quality. And then on top of that, you also have like these other teams that are popping up. Like, I don't know if you've heard of the Savannah Bananas.
No, but I'm in. Tell me more.
Okay, so that is
first of all, that name is amazing.
The Savannah Bananas, based out of Georgia, of course. They're just an incredible like entertainment. It's like theater. It's like watching baseball theater. But you can see like on their social media accounts, like they will have like it's just like absurd rules. Like they're just like they have like a pitcher on stilts. They have like mascots having to like play. They have like they're just like crazy rules you would never think. They have like they just like work in like TikTok dances into the game, like just in the middle of the game, random stuff. It's amazing. It's just such a spectacle. But it's baseball as well. It's like here are the rules of baseball. They're just like bending and twisting it in whatever ways that they want. So there's even like further out, like weird baseball that you can get into.
Yeah. I mean, because I think about, when I decided to move to Chicago, I was like, it's a football town. I'll get into the Bears. Just watch the Bears. It is so hard to watch football because every night is a different subscriber service. Like it was going to cost me like $800 a month to watch football. And I was like,
yeah. Well, but that's the thing is like in a lot of weird ways, the monetization of the sport through watching on TV at this point, like, I don't know, the business of sport is a little weird because like they want the in stadium experience to be like something you have to go to, right?
Yeah.
But we're getting a lot of that experience at home now. So how do you capitalize on a lot of more people watching at home than you have in your stadium?
Yeah.
You're going to monetize the heck out of your TV experience. But that's sort of like, it's a little regressive in a way because if you want to grow your sport, you can't like limit the amount of people who are watching the sport, right? So there's a weird balance there. It's like only diehard fans are going to be buying into like these crazy sports packages, right?
Yeah, it's a package. And your point about baseball is I hadn't considered that. And it's such a great way to think about getting into a sport because my sport is MMA. And where am I?
We're going to Vegas.
I gotta go to Vegas. I think there's one in Kansas or Oklahoma. There's one that happens women's only. Yeah. There's it's not something that I can in the Chicago burbs just pop it. Maybe I can. I don't know. I should look into it, but it's not widespread, right? There's no feeder system. It's still a relatively young sport. Even the history of it probably wouldn't take that much to figure out, whereas you could spend a lifetime learning the history of baseball.
Right. And MMA in general, like you do have like two, I guess, bigger leagues, so to speak, between like UFC and Bellator. But it is so like centralized to like Vegas or like Miami or I don't know. But there are places where it's like, like the only way to watch that show is to go and even on top of that, like to watch like outside of UFC Fight Night, which happens like once every 2 weeks or something, like the pay-per-view events, they're just like also like supremely expensive if you want to like get into it. Right?
Yeah, because you're paying for your ESPN2 subscription, and then if you want pay-per-view, you're usually $60. You're out $60, but you're getting a full slate of fights.
Yeah,
but you're at home in your house paying $60 to watch people fight.
Yeah, and it's like, it's also the time, right? Like the undercards or the preliminary fights, they could end in seconds. And so like your $60 are going to like maybe a total of like 10 minutes of fights.
Maybe you're getting a lot of commercials, that's for sure. But sometimes I found like there'll be times where I'm like, oh, I just want to get through, and like they'll go the full set of rounds for the undercard, and so we won't get to the main fight until 11:30 on a Saturday night, and I'm like, been here since 4, done. So So Nick, where on the internets can we find you?
You can find me on Twitch.
Okay.
Twitch.tv/NickWan_data_sci. That's probably linked somewhere.
It will be in the description. Everything. I'll put like a little on screen. We'll make sure people can find you.
Okay. You can find me on Twitch. You can find me on YouTube, youtube.com/NickWan. You could find me on the Dying Blue Bird site, twitter.com/NickWan. I didn't get called to the 10th floor to show snippets of my code.
You've got 5 lines of salient code for every stream you've ever done.
Yeah, when my chat hears this, they're going to be like, Nick's never coded more than 5 lines in his entire life. So
I literally have a question that says, how many lines of code do you write a day?
yeah, five lines. You saw the because I'm sponsored by Hewlett Packard, so I had to write a bio. Have you ever seen my bio on the
Yeah,
Hewlett
your
Packard
Z
site?
by HP.
Yeah, yeah. It was just troll. My entire community wrote it. I was like, oh man, my community, like I didn't want to write my own bio, right? Like that's
Yeah.
I always feel weird. It's like, oh, I gotta write in third person about me. And I'm just like brutally honest about myself. Like, yeah, I don't know anything. Don't give me a bio. So I was like, the community can do it. They'll do right by me. And then it was like, he writes 5 lines of code a night.